Hello, leaders. Dr. Patrick Jinks here, leadership and strategy coach and president of the Jinks Perspective. Forming meaningful relationships with your employees is a critical aspect of leadership. But how far is too far? What do leaders need to be careful of in their relationships and interactions with their team members? Let's cue it up. Credit for this week's episode goes to one of my outstanding coachees named Ryan Verba. Ryan's a senior leader at Our Lady of Mercy Outreach Services in St. John's Island, here in my home state of South Carolina. He's their director of programs, and in a recent coaching conversation with Ryan, we were talking about the importance of leaders having meaningful relationships with their employees. And yes, I do have Ryan's permission to discuss this coaching conversation content with you. During this recent coaching conversation, Ryan asked if I had any sources or references that I could send his way on the establishment of the appropriate boundaries within these relationships. I suggested to him that the answer may already lie within, and that before he Googled it or read anything that I might send his way, he sit down and make a list of his own as if he were writing a blog article on the subject as a subject matter expert. What he came up with between coaching sessions was so insightful that I asked his permission to share it here with you. And of course, he graciously agreed. So here it is. And he actually came up with about 10 guidelines. What I want to share with you in this brief episode are my favorite 5. And then I'd like to challenge you, our viewers, to think of anything you would add to the list. So here we go. Number 1, avoid the obvious pitfall topics. We all know the danger we can get into when we allow our workplace conversation to move into the areas of religion, sex, politics, personal relationship issues, etc. But Ryan added something to this list. He advised leaders to be careful about discussing your own career aspirations with your employees. Keep it about them, not about you. Discussing your own career aspirations can lower trust because it can send a signal to your team that you care more about your career growth than you do about theirs. Number 2, consider the amount of time you spend in non-work related conversation with your team members. Now, I happen to feel strongly about the fact that there should be some non-work related conversation in the workplace. From the Jinks perspective, this enhances relationship because it keeps it real. It acknowledges the fact that we're humans before we are employees. But Ryan makes a good point here. We can't overdo it. We have to be careful not to spend too much time on that relationship conversation bandwidth. For example, it's probably not a great idea to go into an employee's office and talk for an hour about their upcoming trip to Hawaii. They may not appreciate the fact that you're consuming so much of their time when they have so much on their plate that you probably put there. Bottom line, all things in moderation. Number 3, avoid talking negatively about anyone. And Ryan means anyone, especially coworkers. I think Ryan is spot on with this one. One of the world's most successful executive coaches and authors, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, and his colleagues once conducted a global study asking CEOs of major corporations what percentage of all workplace conversations within their companies they believed were some combination of either people bragging about themselves or putting someone else down. Now, this wasn't a study of what the actual percentage was. It was a study of what the CEOs believe the percentage is in their companies. The result, about 65%. In other words, CEOs who generally want to frame their businesses in a positive light say that nearly 2/3 of all workplace conversation in their workplace involves bragging or criticizing. So Goldsmith asks the simple question, what's one thing you could do in your company to increase productivity? Of course, the CEOs know the answer. Stop those conversations. Leaders may feel like they're building trust when they talk somebody down to somebody else, but they aren't. They're eroding trust. They're diminishing their own character in real time. Number 4, this one relates back to number 1. In tip number 1, we said leaders should avoid the pitfall conversation topics in the workplace. Tip number 4 is for leaders to reframe the boundaries if the employees do stray into those inappropriate topics. As much as we want to have trusting relationships in the workplace, there are those times when it is appropriate to reestablish that proverbial arm's length distance. This can happen when employees try to take advantage of the relationship in inappropriate ways. Leaders have to be emotionally intelligent and hyper aware in order to recognize those moments when they see them and artfully reframe. Reframe the conversation in a way that preserves the relationship while keeping it within the guide rails. And my number 5 favorite tip of Ryan's is to keep your motive authentic. Your people will see through any superficial efforts to build relationships with them. Don't make it obligatory or cheesy or routine or fake. Check your motive. As a leader, you should want to establish true healthy relationships with the people that you lead in such a way that helps them see that you care about them as humans before you care about them as employees. They need to see that you are genuinely invested in their growth development, their success, and their fulfillment. I would say, as I always do, that's the Jinx perspective for this week. But this week, it's more appropriate to say that's the Ryan Verba perspective. I personally don't think he would have found anything more poignant on the internet. Feel free to leave a comment and tell us what you think about Ryan's list and add any items you think you would include if you were writing an expert article on the subject. In the meantime, as always, if you'd like to explore ways that the Jinx perspective can help you or your organization achieve greater clarity, simplicity, and alignment in your organization, don't hesitate to schedule a free discovery call with me by clicking the link that's in the video description below this video. Also, more subscribers to this channel makes the channel more visible. The more people see it, the faster it will grow. So please subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below. You'll also want to include the bell icon. That will notify you when we drop new episodes on this channel. And finally, I hope you'll share this with a friend who might find it useful. And we'll see you here next time. Lead on.